Oh boy. So, Stars on Mars, episode 5. Well, wasn't that an interesting shit show? Okay, so it starts off, with everyone having a good time. Um, they just are having a chat, doing their usual thing. Lance is being the punching bag for Ronda Rousey. Then then Marshawn comes in. He wants to, go throw a few punches. And Lance like, okay, I'm done. And he's like, wait, you're the punching bag. Now, based on what ends up happening at this episode, I'm sure they would have, most of those guys would have wanted to take that very literally. Anyway, so they're having a good time. Everybody's just gelling. Everyone's having a good time. And then it comes time um to to get a new base commander. And Adam decides that he wants to be base commander. The girls are all talking, before this, Ariel, Portia, and Tinashe, and they're all being super nice, super supportive of each other. It looks like that they're going to suggest Ariel, or that Ariel's going to take the initiative to become base commander. Then Adam pipes up, and he had just spoken with Portia and Tinashe, and they're like, oh yeah, we would definitely want you as base commander. And Ariel's just stewing. She's not happy. And so everyone decides that Adam's going to be base commander. So obviously they choose differently week to week how they're going to choose a base commander. But so they all agree Adam should be base commander, and Ariel's like, I just don't want to step on anyone's toes. There's a vibe in the house. So if Adam wants to do it, I can do it next week. Based on what ended up happening this week, that might come back to bite her in the ass, except for the part about just the mission specialist is generally the only one safe. It was just like, I think the first week that the base commander was safe as well. Now just the mission specialist is. But all the camaraderie and the good vibes come to a crashing halt when, for some reason, now I don't know if a producer suggested that Lance bring this up or if there was something organically that he and Ronda were talking about that brought this up, but he brought up the trans athletes in sports. And so yeah, nobody was having it. Adam looked like he wanted to cry, like what the hell? He was very uncomfortable. He did not want to be around this. And this was obviously a conversation none of them wanted to have. And so Lance, now in theory, yes, that is a conversation to be had. Whether when trans athletes should be allowed to compete and what the criteria should be. Absolutely, that is something that scientists are working out. And Lance is like, well, until science tells me, one way or the other. It's like, yeah, science has been doing studies on this, Lance. Why is it that the people who scream that, follow the science are generally the ones who don't actually follow the science? I mean, there have been studies done. There have been studies done that going through male puberty does have some advantages, that there are some permanent advantages. Now, my problem with this whole conversation is not what everyone is piling on Lance about, his hypocrisy, because he basically cheated his entire career with doping. That is not my problem with this. Because people can learn, people can grow. It's entirely possible that Lance fully understands, what he did was wrong. Or he just realizes he did a bad job. I don't know. I don't know if he has any remorse for cheating or not. But he and so yes, that is a conversation to be had. Not by you, not by the residents of the HAB, but by scientists and sports bodies. They're the ones who are studying this. They're the ones who create the criteria as to what constitutes cheating, which Lance should frickin' know everything about. And I don't mean just because he cheated. I'm talking about the fact that you have to know what is within the normal range in order to successfully cheat. Because he cheated for years without being caught. So he should know that there are ranges when it comes to testosterone, when it comes to how much oxygen is in your blood. They have tests for frickin' everything. So he should know this. He should know that there are, how much testosterone can a person have? Because there are cis athletes, born, athletes born identifying as the gender, as the sex they were born with. There are cis people, who will fluctuate out of the range that's being given for sports. And they're still cis athletes. They probably didn't dope. They just happen to have higher levels of testosterone or higher oxygenated blood than what is considered which is considered baseline, which is considered within the range. He should know that as an athlete, simply as an Olympic athlete and a member of a sport of cycling where that is watched so heavily, because he came about when it seemed like all you had to do was throw a rock and you will hit someone who's freaking doping, because cycling was rife with it, it seemed. I mean, you couldn't go a day without hearing about another doping scandal. So, he should, of all people, know that there are ranges that they test for. And for people who say he was young and he trusted his doctors, Tara Lipinski would like a word. She was a figure skater when she was 16 and won the Olympics. She knew what the levels were that she needed to do. She knew what medication she could take. She probably knew what levels of everything you needed. So, no, his age means nothing. So he knew. He knows what is considered to be within the bounds of sports. So, as long as a trans athlete falls within that range of whatever is being tested for, then how can you say that they do not belong in that gender's category? Now, if it's true that there are permanent male that if you go through male puberty, that there are permanent changes, which I can believe there are, because trans people have said if they were to get off hormones, that there are certain features that they would have it permanently, depending on how long they were on hormones. So it's entirely possible that there are certain ranges that will never come down for trans women because they went through male puberty. There are certain sports that have said if you've gone through male puberty, you cannot compete with women. Okay, fine. It sucks for trans athletes, absolutely. But based on the science as we know it, so there you go, Lance. Question has been answered. But I get the feeling you're doing this in bad faith, that you're not having a good faith conversation. Why do I think that? Because you then go on and then say, oh, well, I'm not a right winger. I'm fine if you want to transition, but, um, I'm the most liberal person. And then he trailed off. Like I don't know if he read the room and he saw the discomfort of his castmates, or more likely he realized he started to sound like Donald Trump. And his I'm the least racist person you'll ever meet, because that's exactly how non-racists talk. So he probably realized that, oh yeah, that actually is saying the exact opposite now. That's great. Now, I don't know his politics in general. I really do not care. But the person who had the best response, now, first off, to create another category just for trans people, first off, that would require having enough trans athletes who are able to compete at said level, which generally there aren't that many trans athletes. So, okay, the reason men and women have their own categories is because there's enough of them competing. When women do not have enough people competing in their category, they generally end up having to compete against men, especially growing up. So, yeah. How can you have a separate category for trans women when there aren't enough trans women to compete? That's stupid. But Adam pointed out quite rightly. Now, I don't know if he said it to Lance's face, which is something Lance needs to hear, is it's nuanced. And yes, there are certain sports that probably going through male puberty would give them an unfair advantage. Like I said, there are sports that are saying that trans athletes who've gone through male puberty cannot compete with women. And so things are being done about it. So why are you opening your full mouth and talking about cheating in sports, which, well, he got blasted for it behind the scenes. I've been reading about how Ariel read the court documents. Oh, I forgot that you got suspended that you got stripped of 7 titles and an Olympic gold medal for cheating. And which makes me wonder if her mistake of her thinking Lance Armstrong was Neil was actually genuine, and in the meantime she had figured it out, or if that was scripted, because she seems to be quite familiar with who Lance Armstrong is. So she just let him have it. Apparently he wouldn't back down. The following dinner he continued to talk about it, and Adam's like, look, the people who should be a part of this conversation aren't here. Scientists and trans people. And like I said, Adam had the best response besides the, let's not other people. But, you know, pointing out that, it's more nuanced, that trans athletes take years to be able to fit into their gender category because they have to reach the markers, reach those those levels that they need to compete with women, like testosterone levels, which, I've pointed this out in my other videos on my other channel, that women do have some testosterone in them. It's not just a strictly male hormone. It's just that men have a lot more of it in their system, but women do have testosterone, so that has to be tested to make sure that you're within the range. And so these athletes go through all this to make those ranges. It's not like, a guy past puberty puts on a wig and says, "Oh, I'm a woman now, so I demand that I get to compete with women." Not how any of this works. And Lance is just showing his complete ignorance, all the while saying that he wants science to, that he follows science and he wants science to tell him what's fair and what isn't. And my response is, science has explained this. It just shows that don't actually care what science has to say, because you've made up your mind. So when you say that this is a conversation that should be had, it's in bad faith. But I also read that Adam called him the greatest cheater in sports history. And he also questioned whether he felt comfortable staying on the show, and that his husband and other family members convinced him to stay. And so yeah, and he said that the dynamic shifted, and it never shifted back. It's hard to look at Lance the same way. Even if you were totally buddy with him, after this you're like, oh, well, maybe not. Now, should he be given credit for not thinking that trans people should not exist? Well, I guess if you want to consider just being a decent human being something worthy of a cookie. But so yeah, he is right. There should be conversations about this. But just because nobody's having that conversation with him number one, that doesn't mean the conversation isn't happening. And number two, it doesn't mean that decisions aren't being made. It's just you're not a part of that because it's none of your damn business. So, and you should understand that your cheating ass had nothing to do with the anti-doping agency deciding where to put the acceptable ranges, except for the fact that because he doped, I think that actually led them to change the ranges. But it wasn't because they asked a doper, "Oh, well, what range do you think is normal?" That's not his job. So, anyway, this went on far too long. But anyway, so yeah, Lance is totally not liked. I also read that except for Lance, everyone keeps in contact with each other, which tells you that Lance really fucked up. with. Now, I don't know if Lance remained in contact with like Marshawn or Rhonda, or if they were both like, yeah, you're toxic, dude. I'm staying the hell away. So that's, I don't know, but it sounds like no, they all picked each other over Lance. But anyway, moving on from that shit show. So, I forgot to mention before this conversation, Marshawn and Lance were playing darts. And Lance is super, super competitive and super boisterous. And yeah, some things don't change. But Ariel got a chance to play. And he was bugging her about, are you even 5 feet? And she's like, I'm 5'1". Which, yeah, huge difference there, Ariel. Now, the only problem I had with this conversation is that, yeah, Lance was needling Ariel, but he was being his usual obnoxious self. But what bugged me was Lance declared, I know you do not like me. And she's like, did I ever say that? Where did you get this idea? And I'm like, you say it in the confessionals. What makes you think that the way you treat him isn't mirrored in your confessionals? So Lance might be a bit of an ass. Okay, a lot of an ass. But he's not an idiot. Even when he was doping, he knew damn well what he was doing. But now whether he felt pressured by all the other cyclists because the idea was all cyclists dope is a different story. But he still knew what the hell he was doing. Now, so yeah, he's an ass. But seriously, Ariel, unless you tell someone that you do not like them, say those words, then that's not true. You said in the first episode that people say mean comments on social media. You know about that. Are you honestly going to tell me that those people who say mean things to you still like you because they never actually said the words, I do not like you? Yeah, as much as I'm not a fan of Lance, I'm not a fan of Ariel either. So anyway, um, now up to the last second, there were so many confessionals about how excited they are for the new astronauts, the new housemates, the new celebronauts. And because they were emphasizing it so freaking much, I really thought that till the last second that these weren't going to be real people. But so they're talking about that and trying to figure out, talking about how this is a new strategy, and these people are going to have to work really, really hard, and blah, 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 blah. So, like I said, up to the last second, I thought that it wasn't going to be real people. But, and this is where, possibly a scripted part of the show was saying how they would like a celebrity chef. Actually, I think she didn't name drop Kat Cora. It was, I think, Rachel Ray she name dropped. But anyway, so, and what do you know? But, so they're all discussing about the 4 new people, and which makes me wonder how long this show actually is. But, how many episodes. So, So then it comes, and at the end of last episode, I honestly thought there was already an emergency, but it was just an alert. So now they come to an emergency. And the emergency is, and Marshawn is obviously just woke up. Now, whether it is because they were all sleeping or Marshawn was taking a nap, because it seems to be that that's what he does, is sleep a lot. I think he was a cat in a previous life. But, before I get to that, Adam had to assign tasks. So finally, we get to the science portion of this experiment, where Rhonda and Marshawn were going to go out and collect rocks. And Rhonda was super excited. Marshawn sounded like he wanted to go too. I think it was more as an excuse to get out of the hab, more so than anything. But anyway. So listening to Rhonda nerd out was so much fun. I would have loved to hear that. Marshawn was like, I have no idea what this woman was saying. And then, of course, there was that fun bit of Marshawn knocking himself over, trying to take a pickaxe to some rocks, and Rhonda helping him up, only to fall down herself. And they were having a lot of fun, even though Marshawn didn't understand a word she was saying. But anyway, so back to the emergency. Adam is such a good cheerleader. He's so sweet. And he there was not only was there a crash landing of these four of the supply ship with the four new astronauts, but there was radiation canisters, a couple of radiation canisters on either side of the ship. So they had to get rid of those before they could go and rescue the astronauts. And because he had already said he'd be perfectly fine going the distance with Portia, he asked Portia to be his mission specialist. And she gave an acceptance speech, which was so cute. And Adam loved it. He said he loved it. So, and so they go out in two groups. And the idea is that first they have to use the dogs to destroy the canisters. And now this is another thing that bugged me about this episode, that they're never going to see the dogs again. Not because they're going to be blown up, which they eventually thought was what happened, but because they're going to be irradiated. And you don't want to give yourselves radiation sickness, which makes sense. So they had Rhonda and Lance didn't have that much of an issue. I mean, they had a little bit of one, but Rhonda was super excited because apparently she plays video games, so okay. Tanachi was having all sorts of problems, and around the hab, she was, just cruising. So they get the dogs to retrieve the canisters, and I figured, and I should have known that there was a reason that they had dogs, and it wasn't just as therapy or whatever they were there for. So they go into the cave, and Marshawn's only job is to press the button to detonate the canisters. And so in a way, I'm glad that they didn't get rid of anybody this episode, But I was so looking forward to another one of his speeches of how he did the best job pressing that button. Because again, he's not doing a lot of strenuous work. For last episode, it was holding a ladder. This week, it's pressing a button. I mean, oh wait, no, last week, it was 2 weeks ago that it was the ladder. Last week, it was him not being able to run. Anyway, so, they finally get to the crew last second as they were about to run out of air. And like I said, to the very last second, I thought that this was going to be some sort of twist, that it was going to be robots or aliens, that it wasn't going to be people that they're going to be competing against. But it was. So we get Andy, we get Ashley. I watched maybe one season of The Bachelor, so I know nothing about her. I know a little bit more about Andy because occasionally I would see some of Conan. But anyway, then there was Kat and Paul. So then they take them back to the Hab. And all four of the newbies, was able to get through, except Ashley. They did the decontamination a bit long on her for reasons. And Adam complimented her on her beauty, which took her off guard. Now, she did say that she felt more comfortable talking to the camera than to the actual people. So I don't know if it was a part of that or if it's just forgetting for a split second that, yes, Adam is gay, but he is not blind. Just because he doesn't want to bone you doesn't mean he can't find you beautiful. I mean, I do not understand where this idea came from that the only way to, if you find someone physically attractive, that must mean you want to sleep with them. I do not know why that is so prevalent, but no, that is not how the world works. So, they all come in, and then they find out that, because of the resupply, there's enough food, so there's nobody going home. I really thought that they were going to draw it out longer than they did, as opposed to, I guess you're all mission critical. I really thought they were going to, start the process, and then once it got to the final three, that then they would say, yeah, you're all coming. We don't want to get rid of any of you. Or something. Especially since that gave them a perfect opportunity to scare the crap out of Lance and put him in the bottom three and see how he reacts to that. So yeah, that was a opportunity missed. So but while they were all in there, the base command is trying to get their attention. Now, neither Adam nor Portia seem to have very commanding, strong voices, which unfortunately was not holding them in good stead, and it certainly didn't help Ariel. Because Ariel, not so nicely, said, come on, base command's trying to talk to us. Whereas, yeah, she could have probably put that nicer. Now, I don't know if it was just cut out, that people were just not listening to her until she was kind of nasty. But all people heard was her not being very nice, which is apparently going to work in Lance's favor. So they're all around the kitchen table, and Paul, I love Paul. He doesn't suffer fools gladly at all. He just basically said, "Look, I've been around sports my whole life. You could have at least been nice about saying, that you're trying to get our attention." And Ariel shows that she has no self-awareness because she's like, "Well, that's rude. I'm sorry." He's saying that the way you phrase something is rude, and you accuse him of being rude as opposed to thinking, "Yeah, well, I was trying to get a hold of you, or, trying to tell you guys, but you weren't listening, so I got frustrated." No self-awareness whatsoever. And this is from someone who is really, really bad with self-awareness. I've gotten a lot of nasty looks like, "I have no idea why you are mad at me. Just tell me." So, it's like, okay, what did I say wrong? I obviously said something wrong, but you're not telling me what. But at least I'm aware that I did something wrong. She was completely unaware. So, yeah, things are not looking good for Ariel. And then Lance tries to poison the well even further by telling Ashley and Kat that Ariel created drama the other day. Now, first off, not true. You're the one who created drama because you decided to go anti-trans athletes on everybody for some strange reason. I don't know if production thought, "Oh, let's make people horribly uncomfortable with Lance," or if this was just Lance being completely unaware. I don't know. But anyway, but Ashley and Kat already knew how Ariel reacted when it was time to come into the hab. So they already know that there's something with her. Lance didn't have to add to that, but I get it. He's trying to ingratiate himself with this new group because he realizes he totally screwed it up with the people who are already there, because nobody liked his viewpoint. For someone who said, "I want science to tell me what to think," you sure as hell aren't listening to, well, anyone but yourself. So I wonder how long before the new people are like, "What the hell is wrong with you?" Um, so that's how this episode ended. But we see clips from next episode where where there's a mini meteor shower. I didn't think that was a thing. It's either a meteor shower or it's not. It's like being a little pregnant, but okay. So their job is to go out and, I guess, patch up the hab after the meteors are done hitting. And at one point, Andy says, "I have no idea what's going on." So they want to give you the idea that Andy is probably going to be the first one out. And, which I wonder. It's entirely possible. Lance even pointed out that Andy is older than he is, which he's 56. It's not like he's ancient. So, and I had to look up Paul's height because he said, "I'm too big for that thing." He's 6'7", so yeah. I can only imagine if he was cramped, how the other people were reacting because of how cramped Paul was. Because he's already a huge guy. I mean, Kat is tiny, so that might have helped somewhat. But So yeah, they want to imply that Andy's probably the next one to go, which makes me think he's not going to be the next one to go. And it's looking bad for Ariel. And the only reason is because she's like, yeah, I can wait to become base commander. And then she treated again the celebrities like children. Like, okay, listen up. Just like when they had the fire. Okay, time to come back in. And that one was even weirder. At least this time, everybody was talking and introducing themselves and being boisterous. So that at least made sense. That first time made zero sense. So, yeah, things are not looking good for Ariel. But with that, like I said, everyone seems to get along with Ariel because, well, Adam said that everybody still is in contact with everybody except for Lance. So, with that, I believe I'm done with this video, and I will see you guys next time.